TC. Call Jersey Central at 732-545-9282. Toll free at 888-545-9282. Watch Jersey Central live online at WCTCAM.com or listen on your smartphone with the iHeartRadio or TuneIn apps. Connect with WCTC on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube by searching 1450 WCTC. And now back to Jersey's Morning Show. Jersey Central with Bert Barron.
We're the Forge Jewelers. Omega time is 8:37. Forge Jewelers, the official jeweler of 1450 WCTC. Good morning. It's Jersey Central. Thank you so much for starting your day out with us. We got our need to know things coming up. We'll get to those in just a bit. Want to welcome in my special guest who's with me on the Jersey Central Newsmaker Hotline. He's the author of the book called Dare to Live Without Limits. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is something that I think everybody could take something away. How to deal with difficult people. So let me welcome Bryan Golden to WCTC this morning. Bryan, it's Bert Barron. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Bert.
Difficult people. It seems like they're everywhere. And it's not limited necessarily, Bryan, of course, to the workplace. If you're maybe you work in a restaurant or some sort of service industry, you know that customers, of course, can be very difficult. People on the road are difficult. Maybe there's family members who are difficult to deal with. Is it just me, Bryan, or has this gotten worse and will only continue to worsen over time?
Well, I don't know if it's getting worse. I think what happens is sometimes our perceptions get a little bit more frayed, and we don't have the same tolerance for difficult people that we used to. And I think people have always been difficult. They always will be difficult. And one of the main key components to being able to deal with them effectively is to realize that we can't change them. The only thing that we can change is how we respond to their activities and actions.
I like to use the phrase, Bryan, kill them with kindness. Is that a good way to deal with a difficult person? Just be over the top, nice and kind and friendly to them, or is that kind of counterproductive?
Well, it's not counterproductive. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Being polite and courteous and respectful, it's really the only way to deal with difficult people, because if we engage them with like behavior, then all it does is exacerbate the situation. So as difficult as it might be, and although some people certainly don't deserve it, the only chance we have is to be nice, kind, and respectful in our dealings with difficult people.
Now, sometimes a coworker or maybe somebody that you deal with on a professional basis, I mean, it's only X number of hours in a day that you have to deal with this person. When it's a spouse, Bryan, or it's a family member, and this is someone that obviously the majority of your life is spent with, dealing with a difficult person in a personal relationship is something that is completely different, I'm taking.
Oh, it is, because some of these people, especially your relatives, they've known you for a very long time, and they know exactly what buttons to push. And if you can get good at dealing with difficult spouses and family members, everybody else becomes much easier. So the thing to keep in mind in dealing with people is that we have to change the way we respond. They're used to doing a certain thing to us or saying something and expecting us to respond in a way that we've always done. So the way we change that is we don't respond the way they expect. And when we do that, it starts to change the whole dynamic. And they actually become confused and say, how come you're not taking the bait? So to do that, we have to visualize the people that we know to be difficult and exactly what they do. And then visualize you not responding the way that you always do. And when we do this, we start to turn the tables on them and be able to take a little bit more proactive control over the interaction.
Interesting. Does the environment around us, Bryan, have an impact on this? I mean, there's pressures at work, there's pressures at home. Social media has kind of raised the bar for everybody. I mean, on social media, every day has to look like it's the best day of your life, whether you have a drink in your hand or you're at a party with VIPs. There's so many pressures that play into this. Is excessive pressure in daily lives an excuse, Bryan, for people to all of a sudden become difficult people to deal with?
Well, it certainly is not an excuse. But what happens when people experience a lot of pressure, and sometimes it's pressure at home, pressure at work, pressure on the commute, what it does is it frays people's nerves. And when people's nerves are frayed, they tend to lash out, snap at you, and act in other aberrant ways. So again, the thing is that we can't control what other people are experiencing, what their perception is or what they do, but we can control our response to them. And that's really the key element to remember.
Is there any nice way, Bryan, say, for example, it's someone who at one point in your lives, be it personal or professional, you had a very good relationship with. Things were great. And then over a period of time, it just became very strained. And now your perception is, boy, I don't know what happened, but now all of a sudden I can't even talk to this person. I can't look at them. I can't interact with them. Is there some nice way to say, hey, why can't things be the way they used to be? How does someone approach that?
Well, a great way of approaching that is by, like you just said, asking questions. Hey, and ask the questions in a non-confrontational way. Hey, is there something else I could be doing to help you out with this? Is there something that I'm doing that perhaps you're not happy with? And if we do that, rather than by making statements, it invites the other person to respond versus to fight with you. So by asking a question, and these questions should be well thought out beforehand, and not asked in a defensive posture, but just truly seeking to improve a situation, improve a relationship, or perhaps see if there's something else that the other person needs that you might be able to provide.
Brian, what if I feel like a shouting match is about to take place? Temperatures and emotions are starting to ramp up a little bit, and the voices are starting to get a little bit loud. How do I gracefully and professionally take myself out of a shouting match situation before it escalates to that?
Well, first of all, you lower your voice a little bit. You slow down your speech so you're not really engaging or feeding the fight. And sometimes you just have to remove yourself from the situation. And you want to do it in a way that does not inflame the situation. And one great technique that can be used is just excuse yourself to use the restroom. And most people really can't argue with that. And the key is when you come back to the person, here's how you start your conversation. So tell me, where were we? And just that simple approach tends to de-escalate it. And sometimes the other person will say, look, we'll talk about this later. But you definitely don't want to engage by raising your voice, by starting to shout, by starting to yell, and even hurling insults. Because all that will do is just make the situation worse.
Similar thing if it's a telephone conversation, Brian, how do you get someone off the phone with that maybe you're not having the friendliest of discussions with? What's the best way to kind of bring that to a peaceful close?
Well, as a last resort, what you do is you hang up in the middle of your sentence. You never hang up on the other person. And when you hang up in the middle of your sentence, they may call you right back. Don't answer the phone right away. And when you do get back on the line with them at some point, they'll say, what happened? You'll say, gee, I don't know. I was talking to you, and the line went dead. And again, it's a last resort, but you never hang up while they're talking.
Wow. So I hang up on myself, and then it said, oh, I don't know what happened. I guess we got disconnected, and that kind of cools everybody off for just a minute there?
Exactly.
Wow.
You hang up
All
on
right.
yourself.
All right. Justin, if I ever hang up mid-conversation, it's nothing personal. All right. Maybe I'll give that a try. Brian, one thing that scares me, Bryan Golden is our guest, the author of Dare to Live Without Limits, and we'll get some information on his book in just a second. Brian, one thing I fear is being perceived as a difficult person. How do I know, looking at the people around me, if I'm perceived as difficult? Is there anything that I can look for?
Well, again, make sure that you're a good listener, that you're hearing people out and what they say. Take a look at your own actions, making sure that you're not trying to engage somebody else or get them irate. And some of us do this as a matter of habit, and we've grown up with it. If you have younger brothers or sisters or older brothers and sisters, everyone's certainly familiar with this dynamic. So the thing is just to monitor yourself, ask people for feedback, ask questions. Are there any things I could be doing to make your life easier? What can I do to help? And just pay attention to your own behavior. Pay attention to how other people around you are interacting with you. And that should give you a fairly decent finger on the pulse of how you're interacting with other people.
This was excellent information, Brian. I want to thank you for some time this morning. As we wrap up, talk about your book, Dare to Live Without Limits. Talk about some things that are covered and how people can get their hands on it.
Well, my website is daretolivewithoutlimits.com. Has lots of great things, audio, video, some of my columns. My book covers things about throwing out your mental garbage, setting and achieving goals, squeezing the most out of each day, avoiding burnout, overcoming fear. My book is designed so you can pick it up and in 5 or 10 minutes read a chapter, something that interests you in any order. And again, any bookstore online, the retail stores can get the book for you. My website, once again, is daretolivewithoutlimits.com, and it'll also connect you to my YouTube channel and Facebook page. It's all great motivational material.
Excellent stuff, Brian. It's time to put some of your advice into motion this week, and hopefully it's some stuff that's going to help people along. I want to thank you so much. Bryan Golden, again, author of the book, Dare to Live Without Limits. Thanks for your time this morning. We'll talk again soon, all right?
Thank you, Bert.
All right, thank you. All right, there he goes. Is that some good stuff or what? There's some things you can use right away. Dealing with difficult people, never an easy thing.